It costs about $60 right now to completely fill the silver Chevy Colorado pickup truck he's been driving for about a decade.
That's when you really feel the pinch, but, it's just a psychological thing for me.
For now, he's taken to filling up his gas tank whenever it reaches half empty. For NPR News, I'm Natalie Weber in Houston.
It's Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Leila Fadel.
And I'm Steve Inskeep.
And I'm Michael Hill. Marketplace Morning Report is next. And then later on Morning Edition, actor Cillian Murphy is returning to his role as gangster Tommy Shelby in the film Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man. That's on Netflix. Murphy talks about the movie and what it's like to play a person shaped by trauma. That's next hour right here on Morning Edition. Mid-30s right now with some clouds out there. Partly sunny today and a high in the mid-40s with a calm wind. Chilly tonight, just a few degrees in the city above freezing. And then tomorrow, mostly sunny, mid-50s, warmer than today. And then calm wind, rain likely on Friday night. Weekend is looking pretty good. Slim chance of rain on Saturday morning, mostly sunny and low 60s. Sunday, partly sunny and 62.
WNYC support comes from Red Bull Theater, presenting Titus Andronicus. Patrick Page stars in this production of Shakespeare's Bloodiest Tragedy, now through April 19th at the Pershing Square Signature Center's Alice Griffin Jewel Box Theater.
On the next All of It, we'll be in the WNYC Green Space with the stars of the Broadway musical Chess, Aaron Tveit, Nicholas Christopher, and Leah Michelle. They'll join us to perform live. And we'll talk about the show's creative journey with its director and book writer. It's Broadway on the radio, only on All of It. I'm Allison Stewart. Join us weekdays at noon on WNYC.
How to blunt the rising price of gas.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Amazon Business, committed to business buying solutions to empower leaders to streamline and focus on growth. Learn more about smart business buying at amazonbusiness.com.
From Marketplace, I'm Sabri Benishore, in for David Brancaccio. Israel attacked what's called the South Pars gas field off the coast of Iran. It's the biggest source of domestic energy for that country, and Iran retaliated by striking major gas infrastructure in Qatar and Saudi Arabia. President Trump said the U.S., quote, knew nothing about the Israeli attack and threatened the Iranian oil field with more attacks if Iran continued its retaliation. Meanwhile, the price of oil surged to $115 a barrel. The price of gas in the U.S. also continued to rise. Average is now $3.88, up almost $1 from before the war. The Trump administration is trying to dull the impact on gas by suspending something known as the Jones Act. It says any ship that transports cargo between U.S. ports has to be made in America and U.S. operated. The White House is waiving that requirement for 60 days. Marketplace's Nova Safo has more.
The Jones Act was written to help maintain American shipbuilding and operating expertise. But over the years, U.S. shipbuilding has shrunk anyway. We now have less than 100 ships legally qualified to go from one American port to another, and just 55 tankers. The shortage has raised shipping costs. Colin Grabo is a trade policy researcher at the Cato Institute.
So waiving the Jones Act will certainly help. It'll dramatically expand the universe of ships available that can be used to transport goods within the United States.
More ships, lower costs. Grabo expects gasoline prices to decline in places like California, Florida, and the Northeast because those areas rely on ships instead of pipelines. But analysts say the decline will be just a few cents per gallon at most.
We know that the Strait of Hormuz is a critical choke point.
Courtney Federico tracks energy policy at the Center for American Progress.
So until the Trump administration is able to find a diplomatic solution to this conflict, I struggle to see how they can significantly decrease energy and gasoline prices for Americans.
In the meantime, oil prices have blown through earlier predictions of how high they might go, underlining just how unpredictable the current outlook has become. I'm Nova Safo for Marketplace.
The war in the Middle East has made the Federal Reserve's job harder. Yesterday, it decided to leave interest rates unchanged. Where it goes from here is unclear. Marketplace's Nancy Marshall-Genzer has that.
Fed Chair Jerome Powell used the phrase wait and see 4 times during his press conference yesterday. The Federal Reserve's next meeting on interest rates is about 6 weeks away. Powell says what happens in the Middle East will be a big factor next month, but he stressed that he doesn't know how that'll affect Fed officials' thinking. Powell says they did run through a few Mideast scenarios yesterday, but
just remember that we don't know, and we shouldn't assume it's going to be one thing or another. We're going to see.
Fed officials did release quarterly economic projections yesterday as scheduled. In spite of all the uncertainty, a graph known as the dot plot showed the Fed penciling in 1 interest rate cut this year. Fed officials' inflation expectations ticked up a bit. I'm Nancy Marshall-Genzer for Marketplace.
All right, let's do the numbers. Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ futures are all down in the 1 to 0.3% range, with Dow futures down 54 points.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Bison Managed 401k, active advisor management for 401k accounts. The calculator is at powermy401k.com. And by GEP. With GEP Key Agentic AI and GEP Smart Software, GEP is at the forefront in agentic procurement orchestration and autonomous supply chains.
President Trump is delaying his trip to China that was scheduled for the end of this month, citing war in the Middle East. So where does that leave U.S.-China relations? Scott Kennedy is at the Center for Strategic and International Studies and is here to talk about it. Hi, Scott.
Good morning.
This summit between the U.S. and China is getting called off allegedly because of the war in Iran. Do you think that is, in fact, the real reason?
That's probably actually the primary reason. I think the other reason is that the administration is really not prepared for a summit meeting with the Chinese. The negotiations have barely begun, and they haven't reached agreement about very much. And so I think pushing the meeting back gives them time to actually try to cobble together a bigger deal.
What is at the top of the list of economic issues between the U.S. and China right now that, is not going to get dealt with?
From a long-range perspective, looking back over a quarter century, what we see is an incredibly shrinking range of negotiations. 25 years ago, we were negotiating with China about its entry to the WTO and all the reforms it needed to make to do so. 10 years ago, we were talking about a bilateral investment treaty. This year, we're talking about specific products, agricultural goods, aircraft, maybe LNG. And so we're not dealing with the big issues in the relationship. What they're really negotiating about is relatively small potatoes.
Why are we negotiating about such a small range of things now?
The U.S. is quite unhappy with the state of the relationship. But it overplayed its hand in the last year. It imposed these really steep tariffs, and China called the U.S.'s bluff, and it won. The U.S. backed down. And so we're left talking about very specific kinds of things, which could give the appearance of a win for the U.S., but we're negotiating really on China's side of the court. We're not touching any Chinese red lines about industrial policy or rebalancing its economy or anything like that.
How does the war in the Middle East complicate things?
Well, it further reduces the U.S.'s leverage with China. You could say, yes, in the short term, this raises energy prices for everyone, including the Chinese, who depend as much, if not more than anyone, from oil from the Persian Gulf. But China has stockpiles, and the U.S. is in this battle with no clear exit strategy and not a lot of support from its allies. You add on top of that the decision by the Supreme Court regarding the tariffs several weeks ago, and Trump would be going into Beijing weaker than he anticipated, really to China's advantage.
Scott Kennedy at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Thank you so much.
Good chatting with you.
In New York, I'm Sabri Benishore with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.